Good afternoon, everybody. It's now officially afternoon. Jerry Stickler. I'm with Elford. We're a construction manager, contractor in Central Ohio. I've been in the BIM role or a dedicated building coordination BIM roles for about 4 years now. We have been working with BIM prior to that, but primarily with using Navisworks Freedom. I am now situated with Revit, and I'm using the Autodesk AEC collection, so I have pretty much everything and use design team Revit model, and we will reach out to our contractors, and our contractors will be contributing their workflow. So we'll have a fire suppression contractor that will model the fire suppression. We'll have a plumbing contractor modeling, their gravity pipe, their domestic pipe, sanitary pipe. We'll have our mechanical contractors modeling their equipment and their mechanical pipe and their sheet metal, and we'll have our electrician do his own electrical conduit, and he will also generally be the one responsible for doing our technology, so basically our cable tray. So what I'm going to do today, and that's not working for me, so we'll get rid of this. Show you how I assemble our models and get them set up for our teams to work. So a process that I started probably about a year ago, which seems to be working fairly well for us. We're going to start out with a blank template. So I'm going to come into Revit, and I am going to start a new model. I am going to use a blank template to start that model, and then I'm introducing all of that stuff. I'm going to start by introducing all of the design team stuff using this blank model. As quickly as that comes in. So I'm basically starting with clean slate. I'm starting from here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the design team architectural Revit model. I'm going to stack on top of it the structural model. This one we happen to get the site. If I got it, I'll load it. We're going to be looking at a mechanical model. So we'll bring in, and this is all design team stuff. This design team gave us a sprinkler model, and combined with some plumbing stuff. What you're seeing is the leftover fixtures. We got a mechanical and we got an electrical. So I'm going to merge all of that stuff together. And then I'm going to create each one of these views down here so that I can export this stuff, manage, I'm going to go to add-ins, and it's going to go where? And do it this way too. I can export into an NWC file for each one of these views. So I'm going to be exporting out the architecture, the technology, the structure, the site. I can mechanical, plumbing, fire suppression. I'm going to export them all as NWC files. And that's the basis. I'm going to do all my alignment in Revit for all of those files. Everything's going to be aligned in Revit, so when I export out, there is no transform for any of the trades. So one of the things that I was hoping is somebody will do a presentation on how to, this is our site properties. So when we come down to site, this is our project base point and our survey point. I'm hoping somebody will present on this, because if these are not aligned for me, it means I have to sit and spend anywhere from a couple of hours to a couple of days trying to go through and align the different models. So if everybody's using similar base points, they come together much easier. So I'm hoping somebody from the group would take on that task to share with the group on how to do that. What I'm going to do once I get here, I'm going to go through, I'm going to go to the architectural model, and if I export out a floor plan in AutoCAD, I can start creating NWC files and position for each of our trades contractors, for them to draw over top of. And generally when they draw on top of that, they will import back into Revit, back into the same place, and I still don't have to do any adjustments. There are some exceptions to the rule. Our structural contractors, we do ask them to contribute a structural fabrication model, and we ask them to give us the joist fabrication model, because there are times that we are trying to go through the webs, and they're generally, our structural engineers, I think, are more comfortable if we're loading the trusses from the panel points. So if we have that information, we can carry that through. So the structural contractors are not, I mean no disrespect to anybody, they're just not, I don't think, ready for doing full building coordination, and we usually have to concede and work through trying to figure out where exactly this thing lands. But we will ask that they not change their method of exporting, because all I have to do is go back into and save their updated models right on top of their previous models, and they reload. We'll get there in a minute. But we'll start to, when I'm splitting this stuff out and bringing everything into Revit, I can use the sectioning tool to help me break these areas up the way that I want to run them in clash detection. So we have a building, we have a building, which is, this is a two-story educational wing. This is gymnasium, band room, single floor, tall single floor, but single floor stuff. And we're not going to coordinate the entire building in one pass. We're going to split it up. We took this floor plan here and coordinated it first, and then the two-story footprint we split in half. So we were coordinating second floor, half of it, then we got the other half, then we went down to the first floor, coordinated half, then the rest of the half. So when I'm bringing everybody in to Revit, then it makes it easier for me to split up the floors and the sections the way that I want to see them in Navisworks and the way that we want to run clash detection with them. With me bringing everything into Revit, if I get a design team upgrade, then it's very simple for me to remake that NWC file. All I have to do is break out of the, if the model is given to me as a central file, save it locally. If it's given to me with work sets, save off the work, or remove the work sets from the Revit model and save it directly on top of the previous version. And then I can come over to the architectural model and simply export out as an NWC file. I can do the same thing with my trades as they're going through updating their files. If I save their file, so the Sprinkler is usually giving me an AutoCAD file, so if I save their new AutoCAD file directly on top of their old AutoCAD file, open it up in Revit, with the AutoCAD files I've got to reload them because I keep them in memory, but I can export them out as NWC files and I can use it to repopulate my Navisworks file. This is what we look like in Navisworks. No transformations. So everything is coming in one shot. Start at the bottom and work our way back up. So my technology for the lower level, and we're just bringing this one on top of the other. I always save my trades by division. That way I'm used to knowing where to find things or where to look for things. But we're just going through and we're, you know, everything's coming in sections. The way that I've done it in Revit has been conducive to us just being able to stack one on top of the other the way that we want to do it in Navisworks, because since we're only going to clash detect one section at a time, we need to be able to separate it out, and if we do entire floors, it becomes a challenge. To discern what area you're in, or at least for me it does. There's more than one way to do this. So if you have your way and it works for you, that's great. If this helps you understand how we're doing it, so this gets me down to where we start to do our clash detection, and then I'll simply go through and I'll start through. I don't clash detect against the design team model. So design team model is here, but I'm not clashing against it. I'm clashing against. All I'm clashing against is what our contractors give us as their scope. So first floor, so I'll start with fire protection. I do everything by division, and we'll just go right on down the list. So we did A, and this is area A and B. Fire, then, or we'll do structure against fire, then plumbing, then mechanical pipe, ductwork, electrical. And the next series, you're going to see me going down through looking at fire versus plumbing. I've already done it against structure up here, so I don't need to go on. So I'm just doing permutations on down by trade, by area. We'll run these clash detection scenarios, and you're going to see that they'll light up where the clashes are. I probably got this set up to display showing all. Transparent dimming. So this is probably set up to show all clashes in duct versus steel. I got to find where that is at to change that. Oh, highlight all. No, it's not. That is one of the problems that I am, when I'm exporting out in these NWC files this way, is sometimes the clash detection doesn't like to isolate a clash unto itself. So I'm highlighting everything here. I'll have to go find these 6 instances. Just gets me in the neighborhood. You're going to see that we still have active clashes in this model, even though it's in construction. There are instances that, with this being bracing, and we may have to move the bracing in order to be able to get that light fixture in, or it's potentially, if this is a mechanical room light, which is my suspicion, it can probably be relocated, rotated, pushed a little out of the way in order to be able to fit, or pushed underneath the bar joist, since it's probably a bar joist clash. But they're going to register, Navisworks will register a clash each time this bar crosses that light fixture. Each time the geometry crosses, Navisworks will record a clash. So on top and bottom, it's going to at least register it as 2. So when we're sorting through, we've got to go through and pretty much look at each and every clash to see how, sort through, see what's picking up. With this, you're starting to see light fixtures. Light fixtures are shown in position where they're supposed to. They've got their mounting cord into the steel, so they're highlighting as they're reading as clashes, even though they connect into the steel. It's where they're supposed to be. So you'll still have clashes available showing. You just got to discern what is relevant and what you're looking at. So like I said, the contractors that do the best job for us in the coordination scheme, they will take the design team model for their particular trade. They'll use the mechanical background, plumbing background as a reference, but they will start over from scratch. They'll start modeling all of their particular trade using the design team model as a reference, and then we're encapsulated into the design team architecture. And if you noticed, when I shut off some of these other trades, we're in construction with this project. You're going to notice that this isn't the entire design team model. Structure isn't fair, or site isn't fair. So once I get to a point where we're fully coordinated on a project, I'll start to shut off the design team components as we sign off on it. So you're not seeing the structural masonry walls or the structural bar joists, because we've got it with the design team, or I'm sorry, with our contractor's model. We picked that up. So rather than duplicating it, I'm eliminating it out of the design team model that I maintain here, so that we're replacing it. Once we get started on building coordination, I will start to save this off, and I will publish the model. So I'll go through this session. I save them with a date stamp on them, so that they will expire. We have put together a brochure for how our construction teams can use BIM 360 Glue, which is a free viewer. So we put together a how-to for our field staff to utilize the model in the field. So we're showing them how they can connect into it. BIM 360 Glue is a free app for an iPad. Most of our field staff uses the iPad, so they can go through and walk the job with the model. And some of our better teams will take a look at and give. There are times that they question what's in the model. Had this open earlier. So we'll start to do comparisons back and forth, side-by-side screenshots of what's anticipated and what is so we'll start to look at how this is actually constructed in the field. don't have a great, there we go. So one's model, one, we'll get it shot down through the hallway the way that this is in the model, and then they'll take a camera picture of what's in the model, and they can share that with the contractor, asking questions as to why they did what they did, or questions, or congratulate them on, or thank them for doing what was pre-planned. So this has gone a little faster than what it did the last time I did this. That's kind of what I had for today. So I'm open to questions, comments, concerns.
Jerry, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you said you've been doing this for 4 years. Have you seen any, I guess, improvement on the design team side in terms of like their model versus, you mentioned the construction team basically having to start from scratch. Like, do you feel the design side is getting better in terms of producing an actually constructible model in their design, or is it, what's your observation?
I see a varying, it depends on your designers. It depends on the design teams. Some are a little better at giving us a coordinated model from the get-go. Some of the reason that we are better coordinators are starting from scratch is they're taking the model and they're sending it directly to fabrication.
Yeah.
So I know part of it, I know when you're working within a workflow, sometimes if you adjust one item, you might have an inadvertent outcome where you're not expecting it. If you didn't build the model and you're trying to coordinate the model, you might get an unintended consequence of making a move or sliding something around. So when they're starting from scratch, they know how they build it from the get-go. So some of our contractors are exporting their files directly for automated fabrication.
Gotcha.
And they need to know exactly how it's built. Have I got Kara or Dean or Kevin? I see Omega's tied in. They are one of the coordinators I do quite a bit of work with. And they're a contractor that I know generally starts from scratch. I see that they're muted. Can they be unmuted? Can I do that? Or is that going to have to be Ann or Jerry?
They should be able to unmute their own.
Hey, Jerry, can you hear us?
Yep.
Was there a question directed at us, or?
Is there a reason can you explain better for the group why you guys start from scratch?
Some of it is, as you said, knowing exactly what we built. So if we do make a tweak and it doesn't quite look right, we can see it a little easier that way. Others of it is, to play a little more bluntly, we feel like because we're doing such a good job, design-wise, they seem to be laxing a little bit. So we see more and more problems with the design layouts than we have before. So it's just safer to play it by doing it all from scratch.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marlon. I'm actually based out of Southern California. I saw the topic and I thought it'd be interesting to join on the Zoom meeting. So I am on the consulting side, and I do agree that most contractors tend to take the design models, throw them out, and then just build everything from scratch, following in the design intent. And I think the reasons are valid. I understand that most designers do not fully understand construction and or even just simple things as fitting types that can be used, how you can roll up or roll down a pipe or ductwork and so on. And therefore, it's much easier for the construction team to rebuild the models. But as the industry is making more of a transition to send the design models straight into fabrication, there are more consultants that are starting to use fabrication parts. So the contractors can take that information and readily modify it to their liking, I think, a little bit easier than using a design model and converting that to fabrication parts and going from there. Because that, I think, going back and forth, adjusting the fabrication model, then going back to the design model, trying to adjust that so that everything is in sync and you have an up-to-date record model when the construction is complete. It's very time consuming. But that's just a little feedback I wanted to provide. I did have a question earlier. I believe it was said that the design models are inside of the Navisworks model, but they're just not being used for the clash detection. I was just kind of curious what the purpose of that is. If the construction team is doing everything from scratch again, what do the design models provide?
The one that I don't alter at all is the architectural model. If I want to go back and compare one of the other trades at a later date, I can make my changes to my visibility. I'm changing my visibility here to in Revit to limit what I'm seeing. If I want to go back and compare the contractor's model and maybe something that I don't have on here, it's as simple as going into visibility graphics and turning that information back on and just reloading the NWC file again. So it's here if I want it, it's here if I don't want it. For me, when I'm going through, I will actually walk the building and virtually, and I'll be looking for do I have ductwork or plumbing that's either lower than my ceilings, or maybe we have a drain line that's not in a chase. So making sure that I don't clash against the architectural model, but I will physically walk my way through the model in order to determine whether or not we're fitting within the confines and the parameters that we're given. The other thing that I can do, I'll have an active Revit model and an active Navisworks model. I have worked with one or two design teams over the last 4 years that are savvy enough in Navisworks to be able to work their way around. Most of them are not. So now that I'm doing the Revit model, I can convert very quickly to send the design team an updated coordination model for them to look at should there be something they want to tweak, something they want to change in their model to take us back. We did a project that was bid separately, a core and shell building, and there was a different design team on the tenant improvement portion of that building. We gave the tenant improvement architecture and engineer AutoCAD files of what our coordinated model was at the core and shell, in hopes that it would be helpful to them to carry on the completion of the TI design. So I've had a couple of design firms that are comfortable getting around in Navisworks, but for the most part, not so much. But they can obviously do Revit and AutoCAD.
Got it. Now, sorry, follow-up question then. And excuse me if I don't quite know, you are with the general contractor?
Alfred is a construction manager, and we also do general trades contracting and self-perform work.
So then, do you guys assist with the building framing as well? Because I was kind of interested, since you are using the architectural model, and I assume you're using that directly from the architects themselves, considering
Correct.
that they are part of the design team as well, architects are still lacking behind in terms of the way to build the model, so that it makes sense for the building framing as well. And how do you guys, I guess, overcome the challenges of working with those models in order to show the correct framing as required for your various wall types and for any penetrations that you may have through those walls for ductwork, piping, conduit, and so on?
Since the Revit model doesn't show individual studs, we don't. We will create, once we're done with our Navisworks model, we will create drawing sheets, or our contractors will do drawing sheets, which are reflective of the model, so that we can get, and they'll be shared across the board. So our contracting, general trades contracting metal stud framer, drywall guy can see where the big ductwork is and how he has to frame around the ductwork, for instance. So I'm talking and looking rather than doing one or the other. So for this particular project, there are individual drawing sheets. So this is a precast plank drawing that, you know, we're showing where all of these holes are, and our precast fabricator has accounted for blocking out this area. So we're sharing it with them. And then each of our trades are providing, this is sprinkler contractor, they're doing their layouts, and each contractor will end up producing a drawing set. So if we need to block out areas for framing, our general trades or our superintendent in the field will be able to work with whoever is doing the framing for us, or if we're self-performing the framing, they know how to block out for louvers or for box outs for concrete floors or equipment support. So we're doing this off of we're generating it in 3D using AutoCAD and Revit, transferring the information into Navisworks, and we're sending it right back to a PDF that can be used in the field.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hey, Jerry.
Oh, Mike?
Good. How you doing?
All right.
Hey, I don't know if we're talking about wood framing, but you and I have become well acquainted with the struggles in wood framing. You talk about sometimes structural contractors being a little behind the curve on BIM coordination, and wood has been. I know we've had some success, but wood has been a big struggle trying to get good, accurate, timely models for wood, and that's, for me as a plumbing contractor, it's one of the hardest things to know where specific wood structural elements will end up in the field, such as a structural stud pack in a wall. You just kind of don't know where they're going to fall, even when you're coordinating. I don't know if that's probably been your experience too, Jerry. I think the industry's not really, nobody's really looked at that much, because it seems that stud packs in walls, or shear wall issues, stuff like that, doesn't always necessarily get picked up until it's in the field.
Revit doesn't model studs.
Yeah.
I have worked, or haven't, I've seen a contractor in Denver go through and prefabricate a wood frame building for wood framing.
Yes.
They modeled every stud.
Yeah.
They modeled the sheeting. They're in Denver.
We did that. We saw that on one project here in Columbus, where it was a prefab, tilt-up stud wall. It somewhat worked, but same thing, where we kind of asked ahead, hey, can you tell us where individual studs will be? And they said, somewhat, but we can't tell you the guys are really going to put the right wall in the right place, and you probably still have to knock out some studs and move them and that kind of thing. So yeah, so you've seen one. That's, hopefully it makes its way here, but I haven't really seen one yet.
I have seen one. I know we have a couple of wood frame projects which have been prefabricated, but they are not local.
Yeah.
They're out-of-town projects. So when we're going to start doing that in Columbus, I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of those things that, at least, I think you and I have been on both sides of the table, consulting versus construction. And it's one of those things that was always a mystery to me until I started working more on the contracting side, and it's a little bit still a mystery.
The gentleman that was from California might be able to comment a little more than I can. It's been my understanding Midwest is probably the least developed with this technology, and like the coasts are most developed with this technology. That's my scant gathering of information.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to interject?
For any wood structure framing, I know over here on the West Coast that we have a few contractors, strictly framing contractors, that are using StruxSoft solutions. The product is called MWF ProWood. as one of the programs that helps them to be able to frame a Revit model rather quickly. The challenge, of course, because there's always a challenge, is that the models that they receive have to be at a very high level of completion before they can get moving with their stuff. And unfortunately, as we all know, during construction, there's constant adjustments to things. And yes, the consultants are always refining the design and therefore changing how things actually look from, let's say, the official CDs to instructional bulletins or supplemental information and so on. So that's the biggest problem we're seeing over here, is that the models cannot get locked down 100% before the framers can get in there. So it usually ends up being something that gets done kind of like what you guys are doing. Currently, you're doing a bit more of a manual process, but you're waiting until all the trades are in a pretty good coordinated state before they can start moving forward with it. But that's the only solution that I know of that is used pretty highly on the West Coast. There are other software developers out there that are trying to work with Revit to develop something that's a little bit more flexible, but as of right now, it's just Structsoft solutions that I'm aware of.
Anybody else have any comments or questions?
I want to thank everyone for attending today. I hope you found it beneficial. If you have any more questions for Jerry, please speak up. Our next meeting is in November. We don't have a topic yet, but we'll be announcing that soon. Does anyone have anything else to add, or?
Just a thanks to Jerry for sharing, putting the presentation on. Appreciate it.
Hopefully this was helpful. So that some of the design, I know a lot of times it's heavy design team base that joins this conversation. If you guys can get a chance to see what we're doing, maybe that helps bridge the communication gap between design firms and construction managers, so that it becomes easier and more intuitive, and we can all improve on our processes together.
I agree, and I'm part of a design team here, and I'm very looking into Navisworks and trying to have a better coordination. So